All right, so you want to learn how to maximize the usage of that little tiny computer you have? Well, here I have it for you. The most beautiful server experience ever. Period. Casa OS. But first, let me tell you about today's sponsor, PCBWay. PCBWay is a service that will allow you to create custom PCB prototypes, flexible PCBs, PCB assemblies, CNC, 3D printing, and much more. And when comparing PCBWay to other PCB printing services, you might notice that PCBWay automatically upgrades all of their standard PCBs to TG150-160 for free. They also provide you with a quick order PCB section to help you pick and design your PCBs nice and quickly. If you're watching the video, chances are you're into home labbing or home servers, and if you're into that, you may also enjoy custom projects, which usually require custom parts such as PCBs or 3D printing. And let me just tell you, PCBWay is just the perfect spot to fulfill those needs. So while I did make a video about this last year, CasaOS has truly experienced some good changes, so I thought of making a new tutorial this year. So first of all, I would recommend having a Raspberry Pi 4 for this process, but CasaOS is not limited to just the Raspberry Pi 4. It will work on a x86 computer or even some other single board computer, so you could use one of those if you want. But for this tutorial, we will be sticking to a Raspberry Pi 4. And with the Raspberry Pi 4, I always recommend having some sort of cooling or a case to keep that Pi 4 nice and chilly. So I have an Argon 1 M.2 case, and it gets the job done just well for me. And next, we will need some type of storage to boot off and keep all of our files for this server. So if you aren't planning on storing that much, an SD card will work for this process, but if you want to use this as a NAS or a network attached storage device, or just store a lot of media or something like that, I would recommend considering using an SSD or an HDD with a SATA to USB cable like I will be using. So this is just going to give us faster storage and more storage capabilities with our Raspberry Pi. So, and before I begin the tutorial, I would also heavily recommend using wired internet, something like an Ethernet cable, because that's going to give you much better speeds while using your server. But Wi-Fi, if all you have is Wi-Fi will also get the job done. So to begin the process, we will need to install the operating system. So for the OS, we will be using Raspberry Pi OS Lite 64-bit, an operating system I love to use for servers. So first of all, connect either your ST or SSD to your PC so that we can install it. And if you are using an SSD or an HDD, the Pi 4 can directly boot from USB, so you can completely forget about an SD card if you are using an SSD or a HDD. So yeah. So first of all, download the Raspberry Pi Imager onto your computer, install it, and then go ahead and launch it. And once launched, we will select Raspberry Pi OS Lite right here. And then you're going to want to go and hit that little toolbar icon on the bottom. And first of all, you're going to want to enable the SSH part, and then you're going to want to enable the user account and enter a custom password that you will remember later on. That's going to be very important. And then scroll down, and if you do want to connect to Wi-Fi, here is the part where you enter in your custom Wi-Fi network connections so that the Pi 4 will be able to access your Wi-Fi network. Once that's done, select your drive and hit flash. And this is going to download and install Raspberry Pi OS Lite 64-bit straight to your drive. And once it's done flashing, eject your drive from your PC and connect it to your Raspberry Pi 4. And make sure to connect your Ethernet cable if that's what you're using right now, because it's going to give you good speeds. So now we need to figure out our Raspberry Pi's IP address so that we can SSH into it directly from our main PC without having to use a monitor whatsoever. So to do this, we're going to use a tool called Angry IP Scanner. It scans all of the IPs on your home Wi-Fi network and it will help us figure out which one is our Raspberry Pis. So you download it and install it on your computer. It is available for all of the major operating systems. and launch it. So here you're going to want to press scan and look for one of those IPs once it's done that looks like it is your Pi's IP. So look right here, this one is my Raspberry Pi's IP address. So once you find it, launch your terminal application, and if you're using Windows, it's going to be like the Windows terminal. If you're using Mac, it would be the Mac terminal, and Linux, it would be the terminal. So that makes sense. So launch it and then type in SSH Pi at your custom IP address that we just figured out with the Angry IP scanner. So type that in, hit enter, and enter your password to your Raspberry Pi that you configured when setting up your system, and hit enter. And voila, here we are in our Raspberry Pi headlessly. So awesome. So let's begin to install. So for the installation process, it's actually just as easy as just copying and pasting this one script from the CasaOS website. So head over to the CasaOS website on your page, and it is quite a good looking site, by the way, and copy this link that is right here on the main page and paste it into your terminal. Hit enter and CasaOS will begin installing, and it isn't a super long installation either, so you don't have to be too patient, those of you who don't like to wait. And once the installation is done, it should tell you exactly what the URL is that you need to access. So copy and paste that into your browser, hit enter. And here you get to create your own system credentials. So go ahead and do that. It is really not that hard. And sorry for that strange cutoff. My recording software seemed to cut off the process where I actually set it up an account with CasaOS, but that is really okay. You guys can figure out that yourself. Just hit OK, enter in your username and your password twice, hit OK, and you will be right where I am right now. It is a very easy process. And once completed, wow, you are welcomed with just such a beautiful interface. So let's dive in and see more specifically what we can do with this really beautiful and unique interface. Alright, so now we are on this beautiful system that we now have installed on our Raspberry Pi 4. So I thought, why not let's take a look at it a little bit more deeply and closely to see how great CasaOS really is. So right here we have a time, and then we have our date. Very cool stuff. Below that we have our system statuses, which shows us our CPU usage and our RAM usage. Right here is the total amount of RAM my Raspberry Pi has, and right here is my current CPU temps on my Pi 4. So it is really cool that they do add these CPU temps, because sometimes you might be wondering if your Raspberry Pi's cooling is doing well enough or such a thing. So this is really awesome to have. And below that, we do have a storage indicator, which tells us if our drive is healthy, how much we are using, and how much total storage we have. And if we click this little gear icon right here, we do have this really cool feature right here that is called beta merge storages. So it is currently in beta, but this would allow you to merge two different storage devices. So let's say you connected two different SSDs, both 250 gigabytes to your Raspberry Pi 4, but they were not the same drive. They were two different drives. Well, by using this merge storages feature, you can merge those two different features to make them look like just one drive. And you may be like, well, why is this useful? Well, this would allow you to use them as one drive to have, so that you wouldn't have to split up your files. Your files could all be on one drive that looks like a 500 gigabyte drive instead of two separate 250 gigabyte drives. It's a really useful feature, and it is. I mean, CasaOS, they keep on adding really cool features, so that's awesome. And below that, we do have a network status, which shows us how our network is doing, our up and down speeds right here, but they don't seem to be showing anything on mine currently. Yeah, kind of strange. But below that, we do have widget settings, which allows us to enable or disable these 4 different widgets right here, depending on if you want them or do not want them. So if I was not looking forward to having these system statuses, I could disable that, and I would not have to see that. But I do want that enabled, so I'm going to turn that back on. Right here, we have a little search bar, which kind of acts like a Google homepage search bar. So I could search something like Pi 4, and by default it uses DuckDuckGo, and it would launch it in a new tab, just like any Google.com search result would. So it's basically like they just copy and pasted a search bar from here into the CasaOS dashboard. So it is again a cool feature. we have two kind of ad type of things, which let us know of sync thing and something about smartening up your home. So it's kind of just two little ads about what is possible with CasaOS. And below that as well, we have our applications. So right here we have an app store, which lets us know of the different applications that you are able to install on the system, and there are a great amount of them as well. So the app store, quite a cool little feature, and it makes installing apps just mind-blowingly easy. Really cool. And next to that, we do have a file application, which is like a file browser for your server. So you have downloads, documents, gallery, and media, where you could store different files depending on if that's what you want to do. So it's really cool. And if I went into documents, let's say, I could add or remove different files and just see them all here. And if you had a document or a image, this file browser also does support viewing those directly in here. So it's a pretty handy tool to have on your server, and CasaOS makes it really nice. And on the top right here, we have terminal and logs. So if I log into the terminal with my username, so you need your Raspberry Pi's system username and your system password, not your CasaOS password, but your system password. So put those in right here, and then you basically have full access to your Raspberry Pi's terminal directly from the web browser. You don't have to go and launch your whole system terminal and SSH. You can do that directly from the web browser. Again, just really cool. So I could try to run an update like sudo apt update, and it would update my system all from the browser. So again, just super handy features directly built into CasaOS. And then next to it, we can look at our logs, if that makes any sense to you. And next to that, we do have some settings. So you can enable or disable the search bar depending on if you want it or don't want it. And if you don't want DuckDuckGo, well, you could change that to something like Google, Bing, or Start Page. I'll go with Google. And then there are a few different language options for those of you who are not native English speakers. And you can change the web UI port from port 80 to some other port if 80 is already occupied on your network. And below that, we have a wallpaper. So they give you two wallpapers by default, this one and a darker version. And then you also do have the option of uploading a custom wallpaper if that's what you prefer. But I enjoy this one, so I'll click apply and change it to that one. Looks pretty nice. Below that, you can enable or disable the CasaOS blog, which is just these little like news feed things on the left corner of your webpage, which lets you know of new features in CasaOS. But if you find that a little annoying, you can disable that, but I'll leave that on there like that. And then we do have show recommended applications. So it calls these things recommended applications, and it really doesn't serve me any purpose personally, so I like to disable that, and it gives my page a little bit of a cleaner and just less occupied look, which I enjoy. And you can enable or disable auto mount USB drive depending on what your preference is about that. And right here we have updates. So when a new system update is rolled out by CasaOS, you will automatically get a notification here in the system settings, and you'll be able to update it just with a few clicks of the button without having to go put any command in the terminal or anything. No, you can do it straight from the web interface. So very useful stuff there. And we have restart and shut down the system. Yeah. So that is basically a little overview of the CasaOS experience. So the first little thing that I want to show once we get past the fact that CasaOS has a beautiful dashboard is that you can do so much with CasaOS. So let's say I want to turn my Raspberry Pi 4 into a NAS. Well, CasaOS makes that a few clicks of the button. So I would open up the Files application right here, go down right here to Shared Folders, and it says follow the guide to start sharing your files on the local network. So I would click start, and here I can choose which folders I want to share or which ones I do not want to share, and you have the ability to uncheck or check them depending on your preferences. But I'm going to share all of them, so I'll hit submit. And wow, they are already now on the main network. But how do I access them from my system's file manager or file explorer? Well, so let's say I could go over on the data file right here. I could go right here, go to the three dots on the right, click Get Network Path. Click that button right there. And depending on if you're on Mac or PC, you would copy the one respectively. So I'm on PC, so I would click this right here, copy button, copy that, click Got it. Minimize this, open up my File Explorer tab, and basically in the top bar right here, I would delete that and paste in that thing that I just copied over from CasaOS, hit enter, and bam, now I am in my Raspberry Pi's files directly in my system's file manager without having to go through the terminal, enable sharing and Samba and all that. CasaOS just does that with a click of the button. So useful, so useful. So let's see if it works. So I'll open up another file manager and go over to my media folder or my music folder, and we'll go to the media folder on our server, go right here, and let's copy over this audio file. Copy it over, and we're copying that over the network, and it is already done. So we can close out all of this right here, go back to CasaOS, and let's see if it shows up. So we'll go over to our media folder. Yes, it did show up, and if I click it, we even have a audio player inside of this file manager. So really just, yeah, I keep on saying I keep on praising CasaOS, but I just love how intuitive, how easy, and just how they really have made a polished system right here for us home lab lovers to have a really nice and useful system. Yeah. So it's that basically that easy to turn your system into a NAS with CasaOS. Super simple. And next, let's examine the application store. So we'll go to the App Store, and yes, there are quite a good amount of applications here, such as Home Assistant, AdGuard, Jellyfin, Nextcloud, File Browser, Photo Prism, stuff like that. But let's see how the installation process works. So I'll choose Jellyfin right here, and it does let us know that you need at least 256 megabytes of memory and around a gig of storage. But it's just a click of the button. You hit install, and it should pop up right now with a little installation bar. Right here it says starting installation. It gives us how much it's working, and if we don't want to have this on the main page and we still want to continue working in the background, well, we could click continue in background, and we have this nice little widget right here to let us know how much of it is being installed. So it's as easy as installing an application on your mobile phone directly from the App Store or the Google Play Store. I mean, it literally is that simple. And yes, it is done, and it tells us that Jellyfin is a new application as well. So if I click Jellyfin, yep, it launches me straight right here into Jellyfin. It's that easy to create a media server on CasaOS as well. I'm not going to go through the installation process of Jellyfin because that's not what this video is about, but installing these other applications is as easy as that. You just click it and you click install. Very simple. But again, this app store does not have every application a person might want to install on their home lab, and that is where installing third-party applications come from. And to do that, I really do enjoy Pi Hosted. So Pi Hosted is a YouTube series created by the YouTuber named Nova Spirit Tech, where he took his Raspberry Pi and tried to cram in as many Docker containers as possible and create a really cool home lab. And he has created a whole website, tons of videos over this, but he has also made some scripts to install different applications. And to do that, one of those applications is Portainer, which makes installing third-party applications very easy. So to get that script, you go over to pihosted.com, you scroll down to the install portainer.sh part right here, and you just copy the first script, go back to CasaOS, go to the terminal, log in with your system credentials, and you would just copy and paste that into the terminal right here, and it would download Portainer on our system, which is going to allow us to install more applications. Okay, so now you can see that that is also done. But you might be like, well, how do I access Portainer? It's not on my dashboard. Well, what you would do is you click refresh, and bam, it shows up right here under the title Other Containers. But if I try to click it, it does not launch it. It opens up a thing called importing the application. So we need to import this third-party app into our CasaOS system. So it already found the Docker image. It found the app name. It is lowercase. I would prefer it to be uppercase. So we'll make that uppercase. It even found an icon URL for us, which is very handy. But it did not find the link or the web UI URL for it. So for that, first of all, you would right here you type in your IP address, and it's going to be the same as your CasaOS IP. So make sure to type that in right here. So once you have that in, and you might be like, what's the port? Well, the port is port 9000. So Portainer usually uses port 9000. So you would click save, and it's going to import that into CasaOS right here. And it looks like it's just another application that we installed to the App Store, but in reality, we installed it through the terminal. And by clicking right here, it launches me straight into Portainer. And normally you would be creating an account right here, but I already have an account, so that's why it's not doing that. But I could log in, and I could go right here, click this, and go to containers, and you can see right now what Docker containers we are really running. We are running Jellyfin, which we installed right here, and Portainer, which is this container. So to add more containers, what you would need to do actually to be able to have more applications, you would go back to the Pi hosted website, scroll down to where it says Portainer architecture, and we are on an ARM64 system. So you would copy this URL, and this basically is a huge compilation of many applications that will work on a ARM64 system. So you would go down here to settings, and in app templates, you would remove the default one and copy in the new one. You would click save application settings. It would be updated, and you could go to app templates, and now you would have so many more applications to choose from. And whenever you install any one of these applications, they will show up under other containers, just like Portainer initially had, and you would double click it to import, and then go through that process that we already did. So yeah, Portainer with CasaOS creates a really, really powerful and just awesome combination that is going to let you do tons and tons of cool stuff. So yeah, I really hope you guys did find this video helpful, interesting, and hopefully inspiring to go and try to do this on your own Raspberry Pi, because I truly would recommend CasaOS. It has a lot of functionality, a lot of useful tools built in, such as the file manager and the terminal, and it also just has the feature of looking really, really pretty. So yeah, it's an awesome system. So I would love to hear what you think about CasaOS in the description or in the comments below. And yeah. So I hope if you enjoyed the video, please hit a like button, and if you really did, please hit that sub button. So thanks so much, guys.